Now here's the interesting surprise. This was mounted on the bumper. I ended up having to take it off in order to provide clearance to get the bumper off. This is the siren. This used to be a Bureau of Land Management fire truck. Okay, so welcome to my Power Wagon camper build. So I have the grill and the front bumper removed to gain access to the winch here. I'm going to be cleaning it up and also upgrading the winch line. So to my knowledge, this winch was used from 2005 to 2012 in the Power Wagons. It's made by Warren, but made to Chrysler specifications. So for example, the drum rotates in the opposite direction from a typical Warren winch, and also the rope comes off the top of the drum instead of the bottom. That helps it line up to the slot in the stock Ram front bumper. Now, one of my favorite aspects about this truck is the way the winch is mounted. It's recessed down into the truck. It works with the regular stock bumper, so it has a really nice clean look to it. You don't have a winch sticking out of the front of your vehicle. The downside of that is the access isn't great. Got to take off the front bumper to gain access. In order to take off the front bumper, you have to take off the grill as well. So that's a bit of a pain. The other thing I don't really love is the fact that this roller Fairlead is integrated into the mounting system. Now I don't like that because I'm replacing this steel winch line with some synthetic line, and I'd really prefer to have a Hall style Fairlead. Now with that said, I know a lot of people think that you can't mix synthetic winch line with roller Fairleads, but you can. You just have to watch out for a few things. The first one is you don't want to do any extreme angle pulls. You're pulling to the side. If you do that, then synthetic winch line can get caught in between the rollers and get pinched. The other thing is the rollers themselves have to roll really smoothly and not cut into the synthetic winch line. So you don't want any burrs or scratches. They're going to abrade the synthetic winch line. So I plan to sand these down really good, make them nice and smooth, and lube them up a bit so they roll really freely. And that should be sufficient to work with synthetic winch line. Alright, so there are a couple of reasons why I'm replacing the steel winch line here. First of all, it's heavy. You're adding an awful lot of weight right to the front of the vehicle where you don't want it. Also, there's some safety implications. Steel holds a lot of energy under tension. If it were to snap, it's probably going to damage a vehicle or potentially even hurt or kill someone. Now, what I'll be using instead is this synthetic winch line. This is actually made by Amsteel Blue. It's genuine Dyneema. It's made in the USA. So I have high confidence in this rope. I've been using Amsteel Blue rope since about 2008. Also, this synthetic winch line is actually stronger than the steel. So while this has a 21,500 pound minimum braking strength, steel has about 20,000 pound braking strength. So much lighter, much stronger. Really the only downside is the cost, but I think the benefits well outweigh the detriments of using the synthetic winch line. Now on the end of the rope I'll be using this. This is just a solid aluminum thimble. I really like using thimbles. This one's called the Splicer from Factor 55. The reason I like these is first it's going to protect the end of the rope, but also there's this radius here. This radius optimizes the strength of the rope so that it doesn't reduce the braking strength. Also, I like the fact that I can hold on to this loop here, and as I reel in the rope, this is going to stop on the Fairlead, and I have no chance of smashing my fingers as I reel it in. Now this is a high quality component. It's also made in the USA, so I think this is going to be a nice addition to the winch. I also have a couple of these nylon chafe guards. I'm not sure which one I'm going to use yet, but this will just help protect the synthetic winch line if I'm using it in sharp rocks and things like that. And finally I have this. This is called the Grabber. It's made by Bubba Ropes. This actually installs onto the winch drum to replace the old Warren style connector, steel connector that screws into the drum. This just sticks on, and you essentially feed your winch line into the strap on either side, and it locks in the strap so it doesn't come off. I've not used these before, but I think it's a really good idea, and I think it's probably a better solution because it prevents your winch line from coming off if you were to unroll the entire rope. So this will be an interesting thing to check out. Alright, so now I need to get the thimble onto the end of the rope. tell it's nice and buried all the way up to here. So that should be a nice, strong connection point there. Okay, so that's it. Got the thimble on, and now I can attach it to the winch. Okay, so this is where I part ways with the old steel rope. I'm going to be using the old rope to measure the new one, so it's the same length. Alright, there we go. Bye-bye steel cable. Alright, so the winch drum has some gouging in it from the steel cable, which is not too much of a surprise. So I'm going to scuff it down a little bit and hit it with some spray paint to make sure it's nice and smooth to get it ready for the synthetic rope. Alright, so we got the drum painted. It's all nice and smooth and shiny. Now these rollers are pretty darn gouged. These gouges are pretty deep. So I'm going to try to take these off and put them on the sander, the belt sander. So I just need to remove, looks like these little C-clips. Okay, so I got the first one done. It's all sanded down and polished up a bit. So here's a nice kind of before and after shot. Here's what the top roller used to look like. And I got the pin greased up. So now we have a nice smooth roll there. And here's a comparison to the bottom. So that seems to have worked pretty well. Just need to get the other three rollers sanded down and polished and lubed up. Okay, so since I sanded down these rollers to get rid of any scratches or burrs so they would work well with the synthetic winch line, I also removed the protective galvanized coating. So if I were to reinstall these as they are, they would rust up pretty quickly. Now I could just paint them for corrosion prevention, but I decided that I kind of like the shiny polished steel look to these, and I think it'll work well with the chrome bumper. So instead of painting them a specific color, I picked up some of this crystal clear enamel. This is a very durable coating, and I made this little base with some dowels and a 2x6 just so I could spray around each of these rollers without having to rotate them. So that's what's in store. I want to go ahead and get started. Okay, so the winch drum is nice and smooth and it's been painted, ready for synthetic rope. Now it's time to attach the rope, so I'm going to try using this grabber, this Bubba rope grabber. I've never used these before, but I will mention that this is a Power Wagon winch and it rotates in the opposite direction, and the rope feeds from the top of the drum instead of the bottom. So most winches you're going to feed it from the bottom. I'm going to feed mine from the top. So if you don't have a Power Wagon, you just have a typical worn winch, follow the directions given by Bubba rope. Okay, so there's some little double-sided tape on the back here. So it's going to attach it to the drum. This tape is just for temporary purposes so it doesn't move around until you get the winch line on, and then it will be locked in place by the winch line. Now I'm going to put mine on the right side. This is where the original attachment point was for the winch, on this side of the drum. So I'll just stick it there on the drum. And then I'll need 5 loops of rope. Again, I'm going to feed from the top. Alright, it's about like that. Now, by the way, I have the end of the rope sealed off. I cut it off because the excess I'm going to be using for some soft shackles, and I've used some marine grade heat shrink tubing that has adhesive in the inside, and that completely seals it off. So I think this will be a permanent fix to make sure this rope doesn't get frayed at the end. Okay, so that is my 5 loops. So I'm going to go ahead and feed this guy in on the top. keep my hand in the place where I measured the 5 loops. So go ahead and push that through. So it should be about there. Okay, that was super easy. That's the first time I've done that. And that seems to work. So now, as you can see, as this rope gets tighter, if you're in a pool, it's just going to basically hold this strap. The harder you pull, the tighter it's going to hold the strap because of these loops here. So it's kind of locked into place essentially. So there's no risk of tearing out that little attachment point that Warren uses on the side of the winch. So I think this is a pretty good solution. Okay, so here's the finished product. I got the rollers back into place, I have the winch line installed and tensioned up, and I cleaned out the electrical connectors as well. So this job is pretty much done. I really like the equipment selection that I've used here. Now the only thing left to do is install the front bumper and the grill. So I'm pretty happy with the way this turned out. I like the silver thimble here. It kind of blends into the stock bumper and gives it a nice clean look. Also, we have a stronger and safer and lighter solution. I weighed the steel cable that came off of this winch. It weighed at 33 pounds. The synthetic line, including the thimble, only weighed 5 pounds. So that's a 28-pound savings. So hopefully this was somewhat informative or interesting. And as always, thank you for watching.